Hey guys, what's going on? Been a minute. It's usually a busy time of year for me. A lot of conferences and all that stuff happen in the beginning of the year, which is what I do, or at least what I help do for part of my day job. So I had a little slow period. I have been doing a lot of research and testing and all that stuff. Even though I haven't been able to post videos or updates to you guys, I've been doing a lot of work when I've been able to find, a couple minutes here and there to get stuff done. I don't know if any of you guys noticed, but I did silently push a new build last week that implemented some of the new links to the new beta website. All of the news and the donation data, all that stuff is now coming off of the beta website using the new caching that website uses. And the caching on that will greatly help our server usage. That is the main concern right now for me, because the current InputMapper is using an API or an interface with the website that is running a PHP function that is querying the database for this information every time somebody accesses the program and requests that information. But I was kind of going around that backwards because the information itself does not change on that regular of a basis. The news data only changes when I add news. Donation data only changes when there is a new donation. So instead of the API querying a database, I set it up that every time we receive a donation or that I add news, it updates a static JSON file, meaning that now the application is only querying that static JSON, meaning it's not querying, it's not even using the PHP engine, it's just reaching directly to the JSON file. So there's no PHP overhead, there's no database overhead, so the server can spit that data out very quickly, as well as our CDN services. We use a content delivery network because frankly there's a lot of you guys out there, and trying to run a website from a central server location is impossible nowadays with how complex networks are. So we do use a CDN. So having a static file helps with the CDN processing as well, because then there's no query strings that it's worrying about or anything like that. And sometimes CDN likes to skip PHP because it thinks it's live content, which is sort of is, but not live in the sense that it needs to be updated every time there's a new query. So but that's some basic background information. So that update was pushed. It's already reaching out to the new JSON files. So we're getting a little, those of you that are using the beta, not many because I know it's early, it's a beta, that is helping with the server load now because it's not using the old method. But what that update that I pushed already did not include was the new login information, the login form. It's still using the old website's login authentication, because there was, it was a lot harder to implement than I originally thought. What I was going through, the biggest trouble I was going through is if you've ever used an application that used an OAuth authenticator where it asks you to log in via Facebook or Google. A good instance is the NVIDIA GeForce experience. Because of their awesome update to 3.0 or whatever, it requires you to have a login account for you to get the GeForce experience. And one of the options there is to log in via Facebook, Google, blah, 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 which a lot of people like because it's a single click thing. Anyways, that login form that it shows is in a little web page. It's not part of the application. It pops up a little application window and then has a little web page which is linked to Facebook. So that's the way I wanted to go for this. But it turns out that WinForms and WPF, the framework that I use to write this application, the web browser controls that are built in are, well, they're rubbish. They're complete garbage. They're built off of Internet Explorer like 7 or something like that, maybe even earlier. Actually, I think much earlier, 5 or 6 actually. And I mean, our website login page isn't very complex, but it still does have, you know, some light JavaScript and CSS and all that stuff in there, just as part of the framework that we use for the website. So that was throwing all kinds of errors because the browser window was not modern enough to recognize what it was seeing. So the biggest time delay so far is finding a replacement web browser, and there's a lot of them out there. There's like CEF Sharp, there's Awesomeium, there's Chromium, and I've been, you know, implementing, you know, trying them all out one at a time, trial and error, because everybody swears by each of these, so I had to figure it out for myself. And they all turned out to be either just way too much overhead for something simple, just like a login window, or they did not work with the architecture that I was building this for. They all wanted me to either build it for x86 or x64 architecture. I like to build for any CPU. That way I don't have to maintain a 32-bit and a 64-bit build separately, which, you know, would be a pain in the butt. But a lot of them didn't like me building for the any CPU. So, but finally, actually, as of this morning, I found a solution, and it came by means of Firefox, a web browser that is, you know, under the radar, not many people talk about. Actually has a publicly accessible COM library that I can import and incorporate into this application, and it's very simple, straightforward, and it works wonderfully actually. I just have a test window here. I got my little button here that says OAuth test window. That popped up on the other screen here. But you see, that's all I needed it to do. Was this is the web page. I just needed it to display the web page. But a lot of these modern browsers, you know, that to actually incorporate them in the application, the overhead is huge. I mean, if you've ever used Google Chrome, you see that it loads so many libraries in the background that it just chews up your memory. Whereas this one, I got it to stay lightweight. You see it's barely using anything here, at least no more than the regular application itself uses. So that was important to me because for something as small as this, I don't want it to actually impact the application. You know, I need it to be more help than a hindrance. So it sounds like a goofy thing to get hung up on, but it was important. I could have gone a fully integrated method where I just had the form just straight up in the application like previously, where you just log in the application. But the problem is, you know, that if the plugin on the website gets updated, if the OAuth 2.0 standard updates, forcing us to update the communication, anything like that happens, then it's very likely that the form itself would have to be updated, and just as a maintenance standpoint, would have been a pain in the butt for me, you know, to try to stay on top of that. So using the web based login, where it just shows a little web page of our login window, just like every other application that runs OAuth does it. That's why they do it. There's just a more benefit to do it this way. Just finding out how was kind of a pain in the butt. So, but that's it. As of, like I said, that breakthrough came as of like an hour ago. So I built it. It works. So I can move forward now. Finally. So I'll keep you guys updated. My schedule should be returning to normal here. So I want to thank you guys for the support and hanging in there and not roasting me too hard for disappearing when I need to. So thanks, guys. Have a good one.